So most games in Web3 today does not meet the criteria of what a AAA Web2 game is. Most games in Web3 focus on some fancy tokenomics or a play-to-earn economy that eventually collapses. ILLUVIUM, in my opinion, is one of the only games that not only compares but rivals those of its Web2 AAA counterparts. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my usual deep dive, take a look at why ILLUVIUM should be one of the top Web3 games of this coming bull cycle. So before we get started, remember I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't take this as financial advice. The crypto market is extremely volatile and there's a lot of risks involved, so make sure that you do your own due diligence and research before you get into any project. Full disclosure, I'm not sponsored by ILLUVIUM or any other project. Anything that I say on here are my own thoughts of projects, whether it's layer 1s, NFTs, Web3 gaming that I deem as valuable that I want the community to know about. So these are all my own personal thoughts and just my opinion of where this project will be going. So the first thing you need to understand about ILLUVIUM is that it's an ecosystem of games. It's not a single game alone. So there are 4 games: ILLUVIUM Overworld, ILLUVIUM Arena, ILLUVIUM Zero, and ILLUVIUM Beyond. So in order for us to understand this entire ILLUVIUM universe, we're just going to focus on these 3: ILLUVIUM Overworld, the Arena, and then ILLUVIUM Zero. How the gaming mechanics ties together, how the tokenomics work, and why these 3 are the core focus of ILLUVIUM during the next few years. So the easiest way to think about ILLUVIUM is that it's an open world fantasy RPG exploration game rolled into an auto battler all in one game. Now the ILLUVIUM ecosystem consists of these 3 games that form the core: ILLUVIUM Overworld, the ILLUVIUM Arena, and ILLUVIUM Zero. So Overworld is an open RPG exploration game where you travel from regions to region. It's a really beautiful game. You can see the graphics, you can see the gameplay here. It's one that certainly can rival AAA games. This is where you mine, you harvest resources, and then you battle and you capture and collect Illuvios. Once you collected the Illuvios, which is kind of like the Pokemons, so you take them over to the arena, into the auto battle. In the arena game, this is where you strategically battle Illuvios against each other. It's kind of like the team fight tactics of League of Legends, the really popular auto battler game. And then finally, how ILLUVIUM Zero fits into all of this is that you go into ILLUVIUM Zero, that's where you build, you mine resources, you get the fuels so that you can travel in ILLUVIUM Overworld from one region to the next. So that's how these 3 games and their mechanics ties into each other. So I think what the ILLUVIUM team has done is really smart. They've launched 3 different genres. In Overworld, that's an exploration RPG game. In Arena, it's an auto battler, which everybody is very familiar with. So if you're familiar with League of Legends, it's very similar. And then also they launched a mobile game as well, ILLUVIUM Zero, where that's kind of a more relaxed mobile game. It's one of those resources and building games like Farmville. So they came out with 3 different genres, but they all tie together because they're interoperable between each other. So a digital asset on ILLUVIUM Zero is transferable back to Overworld and into Arena. And that way your digital assets are interoperable truly between all the games within this ILLUVIUM universe. So one really positive aspect about ILLUVIUM is their community. They've been building all throughout the bear market. You know, on their X account, they have over 380,000. On Discord, they have 190,000. They also have fans and games and players from all over these social media platforms. On top of that, Kieran Warwick announced that they had 1.5 million registered gamers waiting for their beta release. So on top of this energetic and growing community, ILLUVIUM has just announced that they'll be available on the Epic Game Store starting on November 28th. Now, by opening themselves up to Epic, they actually have opened themselves up to 180 million registered players on Epic Games, and then also 31 million active monthly users on Epic. So that way, ILLUVIUM's going to open themselves up to a huge pool of potential players that can possibly play their game, as long as they can execute and deliver a AAA quality game. And finally, they also have a partnership going on with GameStop. This way, ILLUVIUM is opening themselves up to a huge amount of potential player base that they convert to becoming ILLUVIUM players themselves. So let's talk about the tokenomics of ILLUVIUM. I think that by understanding the tokenomics, you really understand how everything is interconnected within the ILLUVIUM ecosystem. It also shows that the founders have thought deeply about this process and how to put the most value back into the hands of the holders of ILV. So as we go through the tokenomics, I want you to remember these three tokens and how they connect to each other. One is ETH or Ethereum, two is the ILV or the ILLUVIUM token, and then three is the SILV2, which is the synthetic ILLUVIUM. Now let's take a look at the three tokens and see how they connect this entire ILLUVIUM universe. Now the first up is Ethereum. So what is Ethereum used in ILLUVIUM for? Well, Ethereum can be used as a form of payment method for anything that you purchase in ILLUVIUM. So that could be land, your ILLUVITARs, you're buying fuel to travel from region to region. There's player-to-player transactions. So everything is used in terms of Ethereum. So next is the ILV token. Now the ILV token is the most important token because it is the gaming token of this ILLUVIUM universe. Okay, it's an ERC token, so it's on the Ethereum blockchain. It's used for several things, but it's used for governance of the DAO, so determining the direction of the game and where it's going, how rewards are determined, what gets compensated. So it's used for in terms of governance. It's also used as in-game rewards, so you can actually earn ILV tokens, and then you can also stake ILV tokens to earn more ILV tokens. The last thing but not least is that if you hold on to the ILLUVIUM token, you actually earn a portion of the ILV vault. And we're going to talk about the vault because the vault becomes one of the most important mechanisms in order to increase the value of ILV tokens. So the third and last token is synthetic ILV2. So the S stands for synthetic, okay? So these synthetic ILV tokens, or SILV, they're in-game currencies that's actually pegged to the value of ILV. So for every one of these that's minted, that's the equivalent to an ILV token. Now, what are they used for? Well, you can earn them through staking of ILV tokens. So for every ILV token that you stake, you can earn a portion of your rewards in synthetic ILV. You can use them to transact anything in-game, like purchasing ILLUVIUM land, avatars, and any future assets within the ecosystem. However, what you want to remember is when you mint one of these synthetic ILV tokens, okay, so SILV2, you burn an equivalent of an ILV. Therefore, very, very important point, but you're actually effectively decreasing the supply of the 10 million ILV tokens, which we're going to talk about in a second, and increasing the value of ILV tokens because they are now more scarce. Now, why is there two here, just in case some of you are asking? That's because it's gone through two iterations. The SILV1 token, unfortunately, there was an exploit of that token, so it is now worthless and the contract has migrated to SILV2, so make sure that you're only using SILV2. Okay, if we jump into the historical token sales, and I'm going to show this in a different format so that it's easier to understand. Now, there's 10 million in total. So if you add all this up, there's only 10 million ILV tokens. How it's broken down was there was a pre-seed sale. So it was actually 500,000. These are the people who take on the highest risk. So they bought them at $1. So this generated 500,000 in terms of funding. Okay, and then came the seed round. So the seed round was 1.5 million ILLUVIUM tokens. That was sold at $3.33. So roughly generating $5 million. Okay, so these two right over here generated 5.5 million. So about 15% or 1.5 million tokens is allocated for the team. The team has a locking period and the vesting period, which lasts for about 3 years. So their tokens are unlocked over a period of 3 years. Okay. The treasury tokens are 1.5 million, which is roughly 15%. Okay. The treasury is not owned by any individual, but it's actually owned by the ILLUVIUM DAO, which will determine how those funds are spent, whether it's on marketing, it's on rewards, it's on tournaments, how they pay different members of the team. So that's what the treasury is. The launch pad was actually the public sale. So that was about 1 million tokens, but only 650,000 of them were sold. So we're going to look at the map in a moment. The rest of it went back into the treasury. So remember that. And then yield farming. So this is for the liquidity providers. Okay. We're going to take a look at the liquidity providers within a second, but that's about 30%. That's over 3 million tokens allocated for rewards over 3 years. And then the in-game rewards. rewards, okay? So there's no locking period for this, but they're going to determine how these in-game rewards are spent. So let's take a look at different graphical representation of the same thing so it's easier for us to think about them. Okay, so right over here, you could see that there are 10 million of them. This is the pre-seed and seed sale. That's what I talked about, the 500,000 for the pre-seed and 1.5 million for the seed sale. It makes up 2 million. So an unlocking period of about a year. It started on March 2022 and it unlocks gradually over time. The upper management, so this is for the team. The way they break down that 1.5 million is 1.4 million is for upper management, the 100,000 for the rest of the team. This is a percentage of the total 10 million. Remember when I said it gets unlocked over 3 years, it starts on March 2022, so it's slowly unlocking gradually, okay? Now the treasury, we talked about that 1.5 million. That's managed by the DAO. So the DAO votes on how these funds are used. So they did an airdrop of 15K and then ongoing monthly salaries, okay, at 150 ILV tokens. This launch pad was the only public sale of that million. Only 650,000 actually got sold, okay? That was the public sale. We'll take a look at the map and tally them up all together. But 650,000 got sold to the public and the rest of it went back into the treasury. Here's the yield farming, this 3 million tokens. So how does this get determined and how do you stake it? Let me jump right in here so that I can show you. So we're just going to take a look right here at the 2 pools that you can stake. So if you have ILV tokens and you want to stake them just in the ILV pool, okay, this is your APY. These are your rewards that you can claim based on a 12-month period, okay? You can lock it for as minimum as 1 month, or you can lock it for a maximum of 12 months. And of course, your rewards double. The longer you lock it, the higher your rewards are, okay? Now, here's the ILV ETH pool. The ILV ETH pool is a liquidity pool on SushiSwap. So you're taking on double the risk, right? Because you're locking in both ILV tokens and ETH. And of course, you have to get paid more for that. And again, you can lock it for 1 month or 12 months, okay? And when we take a look at the rewards for these, it's actually allocated over a 3-year period. So if you look at the yield farming rewards of those 2 pools, remember there's 2 pools, the ILV pool right over here, okay, and then the ILV ETH pool on SushiSwap, okay, so that gets 80% of the rewards over 3 years, whereas the ILV pool is only 20%, and then you have about roughly like 2% of rewards for flash pools that go over time. So that's the way it is because they are rewarding people for staking earlier. It makes sense because you're taking on higher risks, right? As you go along, the risk decreases, therefore the rewards decrease. A very important detail right over here is whether you're staking ILV or ILV ETH pool, once your staking period is over, you're claiming your rewards, what happens is that they actually hold your rewards. So they vest it for another 12 months. I want you to remember that. If you're claiming ILV as a reward in this pool or that pool, if you claim the ILV tokens as your reward, they actually hold it for another 12 months. They vest it and they reinvest it. So your tokens are actually locked. Your rewards are actually locked. Now, here's the important thing why synthetic ILV, the SILV token comes into play. So the SILV token, the advantage is that you can claim it right away and use it as an in-game asset, okay? So you can actually purchase land, purchase avatars, buy fuel with it, so you can actually purchase it. But here's the very critical thing is that by you minting an SILV, by you claiming it as a reward, using it right away, there's 2 advantages. One is that it decreases the circulation of the actual ILV token, okay? So it decreases it. Remember the 10 million token we spoke about? Well, it actually goes down because you're actually minting an SILV, which is like burning an ILV token. So this is where I think the founders are incredibly smart because by them doing this, they're actually decreasing the circulation of ILV tokens, therefore increasing the value of them over time. So it is a deflationary tokenomics. So now that you understand the tokenomics and how the tokens are broken down and how the 3 tokens interact with each other, let's take a look at their financial health, because to me, understanding the financial health, the runway of being able to develop a AAA game is really important. I'm going to take a look at some of the work by the Blockbrain right over here. You can see that ILLUVIUM's financial health as of August 2023, okay? The runway that they have based on the information that the Blockbrain has gathered is that they have enough money until January of 2024. 2025. And of course, this is always changing because of how much money you burn and then how much money you're raising in between. Okay, so the total funds left is roughly about $21 million. The total expense of what they're burning on a 4-month average is roughly 1.2, 1.3 million. And then the co-founders have staked about $18 million worth of their own assets, okay? Now, if you look at the ILLUVIUM DAO in terms of their expense, right, the core contributors, the in-game rewards, legal, accounting, marketing, etc., this is where they are getting the 1.2, 1.3 million in terms of their burn rate, so every month. And if you check the wallets, okay, so these are posted right over here. If you check their treasury as of August, they had a total of roughly 21 million, and that gives them a runway of about 16, 17 months, okay? So you can certainly take a look at this. Now remember that developing a AAA game, that sometimes takes 3 to 5 years at the minimum, and in terms of Web 2, companies are burning through tens, 20, 30 millions, even hundreds of millions of dollars in order to develop an amazing AAA game. So just keep that in mind. So finally, if you take a look at the schedule for the unlocking, right, for the yield farming, for the pre-seed, seed sales, the team, the upper management, you can actually see all the tokens are unlocked over time all the way to July of 2025, right over here. So this is all posted on their website. Okay, a question that everybody has is what happens when all of these rewards dry out? When everything has been given out already, how does the team and the game induce players to continue to hold ILV in order to maintain its currency, in order to maintain its value or increase its value for holders? Now, the secret to this lies in the revenue distribution model that the ILV team has proposed and put forward. I think it's one of the smartest things that I haven't seen many other founders within this market or any Web3 games that has tried this before. Okay, in order to understand revenue distribution, I want you to remember a couple of things. Number one is, remember that everything was purchased with ETH. All in-games items, lands, illuvatars, anything that you can buy in the DEX is purchased with ETH. The next thing is, what the team is proposing with this revenue distribution is that any future games that they make, all the revenue is going to go into a vault. Besides making future games, any merchandise that they generated, any TV shows, any movies, any IP, all of this is being used, the revenue from them is going into the vault. Now, what does the vault do in order for them to increase the value of ILV? I'm going to take a look at this very simple diagram from another YouTuber and somebody who's active in the ILV community. He's made a very good diagram, so let's take a look at how this works. So here's the diagram that Bettermore made. Okay, it's very simple, but it explains everything. Remember that entire secret that ILLUVIUM has in order to increase the value of the ILV token? Well, here's the vault. This is what they're talking about. So remember the 3 games, Overworld, Arena, ILLUVIUM 0. Anything that you purchase, lands or avatars into the game, you're paying with ETH. Okay, so that all goes into the vault. Now, any future merchandise, TV shows, movies, whatever it is, any revenue that they derive from there in any future games, that's being used as revenue that goes into the vault. Now, remember what the vault does, okay? There's the ILV ETH pool that's on SushiSwap, okay? And then the ILV pool. Now, what happens is that the vault uses ETH, okay? From this revenue right here, or this revenue, it uses ETH in order to repurchase ILV, okay? And then what happens is that ILV will be paid out to ILV stakers, okay? So the ILV stakers who stake on the liquidity pool or the single-sided staking pool. So right now, that's what you have. This vault is periodically, we don't know what the periodic or what timeline it is, but that's what they're saying is how they're going to maintain the value of ILV token is by having all future revenue that's generated being used constantly to repurchase ILV to pay out that ILV. And remember that earlier, people who decide to claim ILV, they can claim it as synthetic ILV, which means that they will burn an actual ILV token from circulation, therefore increasing the value of the ILV token itself because it will be less than 10 million that's out there in circulation. The other really important thing is the team that's rolling out this project. This project is aiming to become one of the biggest Web3 games and also a AAA title that will rival the Web2 AAA titles. Now, the team behind this is a really huge team. There's over 150 people working on it. There are probably 100 people who are developers and designers as well. So it's a really big team, but it's also led by a very core group of upper management who really understands this space. Now, it's led by the Warwick brothers. So you can see right over here, Kieran Warwick, which is the CEO, co-founder, Aaron Warwick, and then Grant Warwick. Surprisingly, but not unexpected, Kane Warwick, who's also the founder of Synthetics, is one of the brothers of these Warwick brothers. So if you take a look at them individually, you can go into their profile and read all about them. You'll know that this is not their first rodeo. And if you just scroll down right over here, you can see that this is a massive team of people who are working on this project. So this is not your basement project or, you know, your team of 10, 12 people. This is a massive team that's going to launch this project. So I do think that this is the right team to be able to do it, and they certainly have all the backgrounds to be able to launch this project. So ILV right now is ranked 96 and it's about $82 a token. It's down 6% today. Okay, so market cap is roughly 500 million as of today. If we go back to the max, okay, this is what I talked about, it being close to 1900 a token, okay, so at its all-time high. And of course, it took a dump like everything else in the marketplace because we went into a bear market, right? This was your time to accumulate ILV. It was fluctuating, you know, 30-something, 40-something dollars for a while. For the entire year so far, you had a chance to accumulate it. So it's barely moved right now. Yes, it did 1x from sort of its low right over here, but there is a lot of room for ILV to touch its all-time high at 1900, 1850, okay? During the last bull cycle, remember, they didn't even have a pre-beta out. They just had trailers out at this point. They didn't have those 1.5 million users. They were not on the Epic Game Store. They didn't have a partnership with GameStop, and their community is nowhere as robust as what they are today, okay? So I think that ILV has a lot going for it. Will it do its all-time high? In my opinion, I think it will. If we get another bull run, if we get all of the Bitcoin ETFs that are approved, okay, and we get the Ethereum ETFs that are approved out in the market, it's going to go nuclear, okay? So it's going to rocket up, but at the same time realize that nobody knows when the bear market is going to end. Also, if the ETF applications get rejected by Gensler again and the SEC rejects it, trust me, we are going to go through a dump. So I would watch out for the ILV token because I think that there's a lot of potential, at least at the minimum, hitting its all-time high if we go into another bull market. And remember, a lot of institutional money is coming in. So I do think that this cycle is going to be heated up, and then Bitcoin halving is coming next year. So that's also on the horizon. So if you're considering the different types of Web3 gaming, I do encourage you to do your own research into ILLUVIUM because I think ILLUVIUM has a very good chance of becoming one of the first AAA games that are Web3. Okay, so that wraps it up for this video. I hope that you like what you heard and you learned something about ILV and the ILLUVIUM ecosystem. So if you like what you heard, give this video a thumbs up. Also consider subscribing, and I will be back during the next video. I'll see you then.